Men are evil, we know thus far. Let us recap a strange one's story right here on Film Radar. Let me tell you a story about Nicole, a teenage girl in high school, growing further apart from her family that loves her but has a bad way of showing it. In her shroud of loneliness and teenage confusion, she meets and falls in love with a bad guy, the worst guy, David. He makes Alex from Fatal Attraction look sane. He basically wants Nicole to leave her family behind and ride off with him into sunset. But will she? Hey, it's Ray. Welcome back. Or welcome to Film Radar. I absolutely love horror films. Always have, always will. And I recap our favorites weekly here for your pleasure. So sit back and grab a snack as we dive deep into James Foley's 1996 thriller, Fear. And bring the psycho hunky hottie's secrets to the surface. In this story, a 16-year-old girl, caught between the pressure of teenage rebellion and growing tension with her father, goes through the ultimate canon event when she meets the new hunk in town, a mysterious bad boy named David. What happens when this perfect family's fancy house is infiltrated and its impressionable princess is swept away by an 18-year-old in desperate need of a psych eval? I will tell you. I never thought I could see Mark Wahlberg as scary. I also don't understand why I just love watching scary or messed up films every week, but here we are. This is Nicole and her dad Steve. They get along fine, although they're not too close at this moment in Nicole's life. He doesn't recall a concert they went to with her mother when she was young, Nicole remembering the day fondly, despite being only 6 when it happened. This taking place way before Laura, Steve's new wife, and her son Toby came into the picture. Steve promises to do better as long as they can both get through the year with no problems. Spoiler alert, they do not. Going with her friends to a nearby cafe, Nicole sees and falls in love instantly with Mar. His name is David in the movie. That night, her dad bails on their family plans, so Nicole tells Margot, her scandalous friend, that she actually does want to go to that scary club they got invited to earlier. She sees David there. He walks up to her and is like, Hi, you're not dancing. And she's like, do you see the debauchery before us right now? I know for a fact they just told him to speak as creepy as he could for the role. A fight breaks out and they get the freak up out of there. Hand in hand, they run out and make it to the roof. They end up having to go down this really sketchy ladder that matches this really sketchy party when Nicole spots Margot. She calls out for her. Margot just waves and goes, see you later. Biatch, what? It's not like she saw David waiting. He was already waiting at the bottom of the ladder. Margot also ditched her in the club the second she met up with What's-His-Face. This got me wondering, is Margot just a bad friend? She didn't even check to make sure Nicole got home safely. But again, her goal was going home with this guy, so you can't expect too much. Also, this guy is like David's close friend. He was with him at the cafe too. They obviously roll together. Margot, like Nicole, is in a spot where she is not really connecting to her parents at the moment. Her dad is gone, and her mother is out with various men every other weekend. She mentions this one day to Nicole while they are chilling by the pool dishing tea. Kind of like we're doing. Anyways, Nicole doesn't go right home after the party gets shut down. She instead opens up to David emotionally when they find somewhere quiet to chat about how she misses her mom and her dad kind of not really paying attention to the family and things like that. Just giving him ammo, basically. This pretty much opens up the floodgates for him actually to emotionally manipulate her. But Nicole just thinks it's a sweet moment. She gets home, and Laura calls her a slut for the makeup she has on and the outfit she's wearing. Not chill. Steve is more easy on her, saying he wants to meet David. Chess moves. Nicole says she's not sure if she's ever going to see him again, knowing good and well he is picking her up from school the next day. They parade around town like the new Heidi and Spencer, David being sure to put the charm on high as well, totally sweeping Nicole off her feet, whispering sweet nothings, and sneaking kisses at every second. He is so fine in this movie. What? But let's remember, he is not playing with a full deck. David ends up meeting the family, telling Steve he is exploring his options for schools as an excuse to why he's not going. He also kisses up to Laura with some BS about gardening of all things. You know how psycho one has to be to read up on something as innocuous as gardening before meeting the parentals? Straight jacket. David also switches from being super charming to super bossy to super explicit and like vulgar in the snap of a finger. I am not 100% sure why David didn't kick him out right then and there. Like your daughter already hates you, what do you have to lose? Instead, he lets Nicole go, and David gets a bit handsy. On the roller coaster, obviously. I totally forgot about this part, but the song that's playing during this part is my absolute jam, White Horses, anyone? Something creepy happens too the first time we see something threaten Nicole to her face. That is not behind a pretty face and big muscles, that is. While kissing Margot, David's greasy friend looks over at Nicole and points right at her. She pauses at first, then looks quite troubled when she realizes what he is doing. It's gross. With all the teen corruption and hormones flying around, Steve and Laura decide to get away for the weekend for some fresh air, leaving Toby and Nicole home by themselves. She agrees to no one coming over, but that night, of course, proceeds to call Marky Mark, who is riding around town with his greasy friends. He tells her he can come after he helps him with something, probably wrestling animals, I'm not sure. She says okay and then gives him the keypad number to her family's house. He enters the house that night easily, and Nicole ends up losing her virginity to him. This lust doesn't last long. Oh no, siree. The next day, when school is ending, Nicole and her good pal Gary share a friendly goodbye hug. But David freaks out on this rando with his paws on his lady, hopping out the whip to put the paws on him. In his outburst, he accidentally snags Nicole, giving her a black eye. This is when Nicole starts to seemingly change her mind on the feeling she thought she had for him. She explains to her stepmom how David has two sides, a loving, caring one like the one who sent her the apology flowers, and a dark, violent one she doesn't recognize, like the one that attacked her friend. While her dad overhears, he asks if David is the one that gave her the black eye. She denies it. He finds the condom in her room, and he tries to explain to Nicole the psychopath he sees in David, saying there is something wrong with him. But Steve lets Laura talk about his daughter's appearance without having her back, and forgets details about Nicole's mom. Any way you slice it, she sees her dad is trying to ruin her happiness like always. That night, she does go down to the trash can where she first put the flowers, contemplating forgiveness for David. We get our answer when the scene changes to the next day, and hear commotion coming from the backyard of the family home as Steve comes home from work. It's David, swimming in their pool with, of course, Nicole and Laura and Toby, even the damn dog. Steve, with a frown, Avi, is like, what the hell's going on? And Laura's like, you made the rules. Steve does some digging and finds out David is a foster kid sent from institution to institution until they said peace out when he turned 18. But who cares? David lied about his past. He's about to make it look like Steve beat him up. This movie really makes you wonder what the backstory is that made this guy like this. Steve tries to tell him to stay away from his daughter, and David goes in on Steve in his little quiet, high-pitched voice, let me tell you, about his job and his lady and his family life all coming all the way apart. Oh, and he doesn't stay away from Nicole, if you're wondering. He needs her to see the bruises. He's calculating, manipulative, but he doesn't love this girl. After Nicole sees the bruises, it sends her into a frenzy, going off on her dad about how he can lecture her about David, but then acting a million times worse. This entire lie sending her further into David's clutches. David is playing chess a little better than you, Pop. At night, the pair drive up to look up Hookup Mountain, and Nicole tells David she loves him. Oh boy. I'm actually shocked when she goes back home and doesn't let David kidnap her to go start a cult. But she doesn't really let him drop her off. She changes her mind, and after he's gone, she takes the whip to his house. And boy, oh boy, does she discover some wretched sights. Let's see, we got Margot the show enjoying her time in the living room with her man, Mr. Greasy Stan. But then, OMG, we then see Mr. David come in the room and scoop her up, taking her to some back room. Lord knows what goes on. But by the looks of it, Nicole is not completely stupid, and this actually does hurt her feelings. She is devastated at the sight, rushing home, crying in a panic. She arrives quietly and sees her dad and stepmom asleep with the phone in their hands, and kind of realizes they do care about her a little bit. What timing? In the morning, without wanting to talk much about it, she lets her father know it is over between her and David. Then she lets Gary know her and David are no more. She then has a freak out when he tries to approach her in surprise in the cafeteria, being all sweet. He doesn't know she saw what she saw last night, and she yells at him to stay away. Being in a school cafeteria with hella people around, he tells her fine for now. Come on, Nicole. You think this is just gonna go down smoothly? Did you not see the red in his eyes when he beat the poor guy to a pulp the other day? Gary, run. My guy, run. Margot comes to Nicole's house later that day while she's home trying to play video games with Toby instead of games with her life with David, asking why Nicole won't take her calls, looking kind of rough and honestly like she's been crying as well. Nicole tells Margot that she knows. Margot can't say anything except that she doesn't know what Nicole is talking about. Nicole starts talking about the people around her and how they say one thing and do another, and how it's scary to her that they can do something and then act like they didn't. It sounds like she is actually talking about David here. She knows deep down he is a bad guy, and poor Margot, I believe, is a victim in this situation, as she is trying to tell Nicole David made her do it. Nicole is so heated, though, she breaks off their friendship and runs back inside her house, closing the door behind her. She does change her mind eventually and comes back outside, but Margot is gone. As she's driving down the highway, she is suddenly almost run off the road by, you guessed it, David, his car pulling up next to hers, him yelling that they need to talk. She is eventually forced to pull over and grabbed out the car by him. All she can tell him is she knows, while crying nonstop. He threatens, you better fix it, but for kissing her and getting in his car driving away. You sick. In a last attempt at being sweet, charming David, he goes to the family's house to try and ask Steve for forgiveness. After knowing what he knows, Steve obviously tells him to piss off, and this is when we get to see just how much fun David can be when he doesn't get what he wants. His more violent, angry side is now beginning to take the driver's seat. The next day, Gary and Nicole part ways after school, and David finds Gary on his walk home. This is the only time in the movie David kind of explains what's kind of going on in his head. He starts expressing his feelings in breathy words to Gary about walls being between him and what he wants. How he just wants to beat them down until he has what he wants. Gary, catching the malicious vibes, he picks up the pace and starts running. I guess he took my advice. Being zero match for a carnivore with his prey in sight, David catches up to him and snaps his neck. He also destroys Steve's car and has a very inappropriate meetup with Nicole in the bathroom while she's out at the mall with Laura and Toby. It is at this point she's officially afraid of David, as she should be, covering her mouth in the bathroom stall and shushing her when she is calling out for help. Bad Mark. He gives a creepy speech while she cries, trapped in his arms, about how they belong together and how their life and future will be peachy. Nicole can do nothing but cry, and he eventually leaves. Poor Nicole is left crying on the floor, calling for help. Steve has had enough and goes to David and his friend's house to creep in his room for some intel. After seeing a bracelet with David's girl scratched into it, he flips out and trashes their house. They get home to see the mess, and they are not very happy. David knows who did it when he sees the bracelet is messed with. You see, David sees Nicole's dad as the enemy. He still loves her, so they're simply going to go to Steve's house, beat his ass, and get her out of there. It's gonna go well. Steve tries to call the police, but there's some warrant BS, and nothing has been done about David thus far in his life. To the cops, this may just be another weird phone call about this guy, who knows. The point being, the family is going to have to sit tight. They have not found Gary's body just yet. However, Margot comes over crying to deliver the news that they actually did find Gary's body, and so now everyone knows he is dead. And Steve is back on that phone. The phone goes out all of a sudden. And then David kills the freaking dog, man. The phones went out, and then the dog's head is through the doggy door. We're jumping right on in. I mean, Nicole gave him the code of their house. I don't really like her for that. David makes his appearance on the front door peephole and demands in his creepy voice. It's my favorite line of the movie. He is pissed. Not having any of this. He's like, let me in the fucking house! His friends are in on it too, banging around the house with logs and trees and shit, intimidating the whole family. Poor little Toby's in Nicole's room trying to slip Margot a Xanax because she can't keep quiet. Nicole is trying to hold it down though. She isn't letting anyone into her room. She straight shoves a guy off a ladder trying to sneak his sketchy ass inside. She sees the security office lights a ways away and gets an idea, the literal only smart thing she has done this entire movie, and flicks her bedroom lights on and off to try and get the security guard's attention. Then when Lord drills into one of the thug's hands, he starts yelling obscenities and telling the crew they need to leave to take him to the effing hospital. That little bit of hope doesn't last long enough. When David and his friends kill the security guard, Steve comes out thinking everything is okay because he saw the security guard's car and ends up getting tied up. The crew forcing Laura to finally let them into the house when they threaten Steve's life. Trapped in the house, Nicole suddenly remembers Laura's car phone. Because this is the 90s when cars had phones in them? And Toby, like the little G he is the one to scurry away to go use it while the freak show Fang Gang raids the house. David's creepy, greasy friend, the one that pointed to Nicole, tries to sexually assault her, and this is Margot's time to put up or shut up. She jumps on this man's back so fast for her friend. This loser Mike Tyson's her though, but she's just unconscious. And Toby makes it to the car and runs over the other goon outside. G-tings. He also gets back in the house and unties his mom. When Greasy Gus goes back to try to have his way with Nicole, David shoots him. But then he tries to go for and shoot her father. Remember, he still thinks they're in this together. He is crazy. He doesn't see a comrade, although Druggy and Greasy fallen on the floor that he betrayed because they were all staying in that guy's dad's house. He doesn't see the harm and trauma he is putting each and every single one of these people through, and he doesn't see a girl that loves him and is going to care for him or some fairy tale shit like that. He just sees something he wants and the wall he has to get through to get it. That's it. And Nicole's obviously like, wait, like, please don't, like, shoot my dad. And while he is distracted delivering his last creepy spiel to Nicole about their nearby future, Laura sneaks up and unties Steve's hands. David sees this, because this is a scary movie, goes for him and gets Steve pinned on the floor. It's then Nicole screams, half in anger and half in fear of losing her dad. She sees and grabs the prize David won for her at the fair and stabs David in the back with it. He stops and turns to her like, did you just do that, my love? And she's like, yeah, I did. And this is pretty much when David comes to terms with the fact that this is a failed mission. She's also like, watch out for my dad because he's about to throw you out the window, and that's exactly what happens. This fool goes flying like he's late for the bus, landing on what sounds like the hardest pavement known to man. Sorry, buddy, I guess the full name across the chest wasn't completely necessary. And that is the story of this family's worst night ever. Is Marco a bad friend? No, just got caught up in some bad things. As Nicole did, Marco just didn't have anyone at home to say no to her, and is into dudes that do not shower. Is Nicole dumb? Nicole is young, and she was tricked by the handsomest of devils. Whew, I cannot blame her. I do feel bad for the dog, though. Okay, guys, that will do it for this video here on Film Radar. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss an upload. Bye!